When you want to listen to music in 2024, there are a lot of options. Streaming, I'm thinking most people are using streaming, vinyl, CDs. What about these? Yeah, cassettes. Well, vinyl controlled the largest share of the physical music market last year. Cassette tapes have now seen a surge in popularity in recent years, with a more than 400% increase in sales from 2015 to 2023. Now, I know, Anne-Marie, you're a little skeptical. You're like, all right, 400% when you're going from zero. But let's go ahead and bring in Marc Masters for more on this. He's the author of the book, High Bias, The Distorted History of the Cassette Tape. So is this really a comeback underway?
I mean, I think there is. I mean, I think one of the things with cassettes is a lot of them are sold by smaller independent labels that don't go through SoundScan and the other kind of more official ways of keeping tally of what's sold. So the official numbers don't actually reflect how many are being sold on a sort of more underground independent level, label level.
So,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, Taylor Swift and Guardians of the Galaxy and things like that are selling decently on cassette compared to, 10, 15 years ago for major labels. But a lot of independent labels are selling a lot of cassettes. There's a cassette manufacturer called National Audio Company in Missouri that's doing better than it did even in the 90s in terms of how many tape orders they're getting.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So listen, when we were getting ready to do this this interview, I was thinking about my memories of cassette tapes, right? And how, those mixtapes that I grew up in Toronto, so the mixtapes we would get out of New York was kind of like my first exposure to hip hop. I have a tape of me and my little cousins like singing and rapping on, and I'll never get rid of it. But also, I love the title of your book because I remember listening to tapes and suddenly you hear the distortion and you know what's happening. It is unraveling inside of the machine. And then you got to bring out your tape and your pencil. They were a real pain in the butt is what I'm trying to say. What is the appeal of cassette tapes? Is it the audio quality? Is it the nostalgia? What's going on?
Well, it's certainly not the audio quality. I mean, you're going to get better sound on vinyl and CDs. But think about it. If you scratch a record, you can't fix it like you can fix a tape. So at least the tape has some flexibility there.
Sorry, Marc, go ahead.
It's nostalgia. The nostalgia is part of it, but also on a smaller level, a lot of smaller labels are finding out that vinyl's really expensive to make now and takes longer. The plants are kind of backed up with orders, and cassettes come a lot faster, a lot cheaper. And if a small label that has an audience that really wants to buy physical music, it's an easier way to offer them something, some way to support the artist, some way to support the label.
Yeah, I want to talk about that with you. Because, well, first of all, Aubrey, the producer who produced this segment, she said a lot of people are also doing this because if they go to a show, it's actually one of the lesser expensive pieces of merch. Like it's not as much as a T-shirt, so that's how they're able to sort of get a piece of that event. But can you talk to us about the draw here for artists? I mean, does it sort of change where they are in a chart? Why would an artist want to put out these tapes other than, a profit?
Yeah.
I think primarily the reason that we're mentioning here is that it's faster and cheaper and an easier way to get stuff to your fan base quicker. Many of these fans are buying the tape, but then just downloading the digital and listening to it that way. But it's nice to have some sort of physical object. For an artist, I mean, I think there's some flexibility with tapes. You can put different lengths on them. You can, especially if you have music that's a little bit longer than conventional. If your songs are longer than 5 or 10 minutes. It makes more sense to put them on a cassette, I think. And I think some artists, like as we've been talking about before, remember putting out cassettes, or at least remember their parents having cassettes. And there's something kind of more personal and more portable, more accessible about cassette tapes.
I'm having flashbacks of like the first slow jam tape I was ever given. That's was like a Valentine's Day card. I made a slow jam tape for you. Where do you listen to these things now? Can we buy? Do we have to go on eBay, or can we actually buy, I guess, machines?
Oh, to be actually listened to the cassette. Well, that is sort of the missing link. It is a little harder to get players now. I mean, you can get cheap sort of what looks kind of like Walkman on Amazon and places like that. I can't vouch for the quality of any of those things. But I personally have had tons of luck finding old double cassette decks, if you remember the ones where you could dub from a tape to a tape, in thrift stores all over the place. I mean, people are still shedding those from the people who don't know the cassettes are coming back are still putting those in thrift stores everywhere. So if you're looking to listen to cassettes, I think that's your best bet.
Get them while you can. They're about to get real expensive. Marc Masters, thank you very much.
Thank you.